Hello, this is Ryder Hales, and I will be presenting about the socialization against the prospect of reintroducing wolves to southern Illinois, and specifically the Shawnee National Forest. So for a brief introduction, I will focus on the prospect of wolf reintroduction in my home area, southern Illinois. You can see a map of southern Illinois on the right, and the different patches of color encompass the Shawnee National Forest. So it's a very extensive area. And southern Illinois as a whole and the Shawnee National Forest is a very practical location for the reintroduction of wolves with low human population density and high forest cover. And after analyzing the social construction of wolves, I have concluded that their anthropocentric stigmatization is exacerbated by socio-political factors. So to give an outline of my presentation, I'll start by introducing the Shawnee National Forest, which was a habitat for wolves before colonization, and the forest itself is an anthropocentric creation, like we've discussed with national parks. For my first approach, I'll discuss the negative social construction of wolves, and then move into talking about how this is anthropocentric and connects to environmental ethics. And the neglect of wolves' ecological niche will then lead to a discussion of the trophic cascade of deer population in the Shawnee National Forest. I will then move into talking about the political correlation with social construction and how demographics such as hunters and communities with strong traditional values have especially ingrained negative social constructions of wolves. So then in conclusion, the best way to solve this anthropocentric construction is by directing education campaigns at the most socialized demographics with the aim of reconstructing their conception of nature to contain an environmental ethics lens. So let's get into it. My place of interest for wolf reintroduction is the Shawnee National Forest. So there's a picture of the Garden of the Gods hiking area on the left, which is in southeastern Illinois. The Shawnee National Forest is a very beautiful area, lots of cliffs, rolling hills, extensive forests. And although wolves are native to the region, they were eradicated during settlement, like basically all of the eastern US. So deforestation to establish towns and farmlands. And this deforestation was detrimental to the region. It's very humid, so there was a lot of issue with flooding. A lot of this farmland was unusable, and these ecological and economic hardships were exacerbated by the Great Depression. So in the 1930s, the US Forest Service and the Civilian Conservation Corps created the Shawnee National Forest. This restoration was of great benefit to Southern Illinois and provided a lot of economic opportunities. So my first analytical approach I'll use is the social construction of nature and how it applies to wolves. They have been heavily stigmatized with the image as being vicious killers versus men as righteous hunters. And this social construction is highly anthropocentric. So anthropocentrism is the primary motivator of wolf eradication because it's based on the interests of settlers and ranchers. So you can see in orange the definition from our textbook, which I got from the wolves chapter. Anthropocentrism is an ethical standpoint that views humans as the central factor in considerations for actions. So this is why the eradication of wolves for the sake of setting up towns and farmland was justified. And additionally, their negative imagery is very deeply ingrained. Even many of us who presumably are very eco-conscious, don't have to think very hard to recall negative, fearful depictions from the environments where we were raised and socialized. So then moving into my second approach, environmental ethics, the rights of nature encompasses the rights of wolves. They are intelligent, sentient beings, so they themselves should deserve a right to have a thriving population. And then additionally, they have a very important niche, being apex predators. Without them, there's the ramification of trophic cascades. Um, so I've referenced Aldo Leopold's Thinking Like a Mountain, which we read during the environmental ethics unit. And this ecocentric view looks at the effects of wolf eradication and how it causes lowered trophic levels, such as ungulate populations, to be overabundant. And this very much connects to the Shawnee National Forest. Um, so as I mentioned before, with unusable farmland and flooding issues, the forest was created with lots of trees planted in the 1930s. And this return of forested land allowed deer to bounce back like never before. And they are now immensely abundant in the region, having no apex predators. And as I'm native to Southern Illinois, I can attest to how abundant deer are. I live in the woods, and you could easily see maybe up to 100 of them on a 2-mile walk in the evening. I can go plenty of days seeing more deer than people. They're constantly crossing roads. I see huge families of them. Deer are everywhere in the region. And then additionally, as this connects to social construction, the Shawnee National Forest is a very popular tourist area and plays into the narrative as being a place of peaceful natural refuge. So as the social construction chapter in our textbook explained with the concept of wilderness, this land without wolves is a place of pristine nature, but it's only seen that way by people who can access this nature and who benefit from its construction. So that will get into the next topic, which is the political correlation with social construction. So my research from writing my paper came to the finding that the effects of social construction and anthropocentrism are the most pronounced amongst the type of demographics that largely make up Southern Illinois' population. So like most rural areas, most people there lean politically conservative and thus have very traditional family values. Southern Illinois is the type of place where people have lived there for many generations. Families have lived there for many generations. And this also comes with a perception of safety. So in addition to the effect that wolves have on livestock for ranchers, there's this idea that if wolves were in the area, families wouldn't feel safe letting their kids out to play or walking their dogs at night. And this is obviously very anthropocentric because it looks at the perceived effect that wolves would have on the established society there without the consideration of wolves themselves. And finally, perhaps the most important demographic that ties into stigmatization of wolves is hunters. And there's a very strong hunting culture in Southern Illinois. I have a friend from high school whose primary food source was deer. And in addition to the socially constructed idea that wolves are these evil, vicious hunters, whereas men are proud, righteous hunters, and men thus deserve more of a right to hunt. There's also a perception of competition, the idea that wolves would take away this source of trophies or food supply. And I would personally say that deer aren't going anywhere. But again, this idea of competition or the land being taken over by vicious hunters, ties into this extremely anthropocentric social construction. So then to see a lot of this socio-political effect at work, I'll play a segment from this 60 minutes clip, which we watched during class.
But the wolves aren't the only ones howling. There are plenty of people who reckon the only good wolf is a dead one.
There are three kinds of terrorists. There are foreign terrorists like bin Laden. There are domestic terrorists like Defenders of Wildlife, Earth Justice, and the wildlife terrorist is the Canadian wolf.
It's a pretty hot issue, isn't it?
It's very hot. It's not even red hot, it's white hot.
So in the case of this rancher, you could see a lot of this anthropocentric social construction at work. The perception of wolves as terrorists, they would be a threat to his lifestyle, a threat to his livestock. And although I can't say with certainty, you could presumably imagine his political leanings. And this all ties together because these conservative, traditionally oriented social trends very much tie into like strongly clinging to one's socialization. So then moving into the conclusion. In conclusion, the most effective solution to reintroducing wolves to this area with public approval involves education campaigns specifically targeted at the most socialized demographics. So the aim of these education campaigns would be to reconstruct the views of nature held by these demographics to encompass a more ecocentric and environmentally ethical viewpoint. And in addition, there could be an anthropocentric consideration of approving of wolf reintroduction, as it would mitigate the effects of this trophic cascade with deer populations. I mentioned earlier that deer are constantly crossing roads, and there are a ton of traffic collisions with deer. I myself have been in a car that has hit a deer 3 different times since living in Southern Illinois. So although there is the effect, the benefit of abundant deer populations being lucrative for hunting, they can also be a problem in and of themselves. So both an ecological and anthropocentric benefits to reintroducing wolves to the area. And these education campaigns would allow these populations to consider sort of the ecological and factual benefits of wolf reintroduction rather than just clinging to their socialized emotional predispositions. So then connecting this presentation to the course as a whole, I find that anthropocentrism is the single most important takeaway from environment and society geography. It's an incredibly powerful social construction within the colonial fabric. And since colonialism and anthropocentrism go hand in hand, they have played such a massive role in environmental degradation. So the discourse between anthropocentrism and ecocentric environmental ethics is sort of the backbone of the themes within this class. And this was an absolutely amazing course. I find it to be one of the most valuable and important courses that I've taken in my entire educational career. And I plan to take what I have learned for the rest of my life and especially apply the lessons during my career. I want to be a science professor and an activist as well. So I would promote ecocentrism and anti-colonialism within my lessons, allow the future scientists that I educate to consider these environmentally ethical views in their own careers. So then finally, I want to show the sites from which I got my media. So thank you so much for watching my presentation, and good luck to all of you with the end of your semesters. Thank you.